Rhetoric is a poor substitute for action, and we have trusted only to rhetoric. If we are really to be a great nation, we must not merely talk, we must act big. The words of Teddy Roosevelt. Say what you will about how you feel about some of his policies, but as a man, you could not have picked a more exemplary individual for president of the United States. And he walked it like he talked it, no matter how you may have felt about that. These words are self evidently true. Rhetoric is a poor substitute for action. And back then, up until Teddy stepped into the mantle, they had trusted only to rhetoric. Big talk amounting to nothing. And we can take that as the historical quote or go with modern nomenclature and modern colloquialism. Everybody's a gangster until it's time to do gangster shit. Politicians across the board, Republicans, Democrats alike, have trusted only to rhetoric with nothing to back it up. And once they are called on their actions, whether by hook or by crook, whether by actions of the voting electorate, or whether by actions of a candidate demonstrating by his own strength their weakness by default, they're all gangsters until it's time to do gangster shit, and then they wind up getting embarrassed. This is Rothma's worth following on X if you're on that platform this week. The 20 largest federal agencies have admitted to almost $3 trillion in improper payments since 2004. Imagine how high that number would be if everything they didn't admit was included. Now consider that there are another 430 plus federal agencies that weren't included. I had to include the plus because literally no one knows the exact number. Don't listen to Democrats when they screech that there is absolutely nothing to cut. There is a massive amount of government to cut and plenty that can be made more efficient. If they say otherwise, they just hate the working class. This is rhetoric. But when it's backed by action, the people who are protesting the loudest protest the action itself. It's almost like when the rubber meets the road, the people who talk the loudest about everything is fine, that know otherwise, have nothing to say. Do you guys remember the church committee? This hasn't been revisited since 1975. But back then, the corruption of the intel community was laid bare. And back then, the American political left understood the dangers of a runaway intel community, as did the Republicans. But at the time, it was kind of pulling for the home team, so they sort of let it ride. How the worm has turned. But the rhetoric, as with everything, someone needs to cut government waste. Someone needs to rein in the cloak and dagger crew from the No Such Agency and those boys at Langley and the guys at Quantico at the Bureau. Somebody needs to do something about this until someone steps up and actually does something. Something like what Tulsi did as the new director of national intelligence. We'll get into that a little bit more later. The talk was easy. Someone needs to crack down on the intelligence community until Tulsi does it, and then she is a Russian puppet and an instrument of anti-American sentiment. Someone needs to control the border. Someone needs to get this thing under control until someone actually does it, and then it's inhumane. It's gone about the wrong way. There are families being split apart, all manner of, again, rhetoric amounting to nothing. Someone needs to do something about all the waste at the Pentagon. Someone needs to do something about the IRS and its abuses against the American public until someone does that something. And when someone does that something, it becomes lamentable. Someone needs to do something about the war in Ukraine. Well, this week, Donald Trump had 3 words for the little U-crop coke dwarf. Go fund yourself. Don't walk into the Oval Office flexing. Everyone knows that someone needs to do something until someone comes with a game plan. Now, rhetoric amounts to nothing in comparison to action. And no matter how much people want to lament someone actually stepping up and doing something, the majority approve. The majority approve, and even those who do not approve are enough of a plurality that they can continue to carry that forward for the sake of people that have the courage to do something. Trump's ratings right now, in spite of the fiasco at the Oval Office this week over Zelensky, 47% of Americans approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing as president, in spite of 24-hour, non-stop negative news coverage from the propaganda ministry. 47% of Americans, in fact, the number is probably way higher. And Doge, those guys that put together to start cutting government waste, for all the shrieking we hear from the mainstream media, their approval rating is even higher. 60%, a full 60% of Americans believe that Doge is helping make major cuts in government expenditures. That's with the total being calculated, figuring in only 8% of Democrats who feel the same way. We still pull 60% overall. What does this say to you? It says that actually doing something, that actually taking action instead of relying on rhetoric, has positive benefits for everyone involved, even for the people that want to come out against it. Now, of course, the grazer crowd is going to come out and they're going to double down. They are committed like religious zealots to the way that they're going to feel about certain things. The misinformation and the narratives that they've accepted are not about to be judged. It's like trying to talk a fundamentalist Muslim off a copy of the Quran. It's simply not going to happen. Protests outside of Tesla dealerships, protests outside of SpaceX, where literally tens of people showed up. The numbers are as pathetic as the media's attempt to inflate them. This week, after the showpiece that got put on for public display in the Oval Office with the little U-crop coat dwarf, they doubled down on the public demonstrations. Look at these massive tens of people showing up to show their support for Ukraine. This, of course, backed up by the media machine pointing out that all these European leaders are definitely going to get behind him. Now, let's take this into account for a minute. Right now, the only ones pictured here are Keir Starmer, two-tier Keir, and of course, Emmanuel tranny lover Macron. But let's just assume that those two and the rest of the European Union gets behind Zelensky. Isn't the whole rationale for NATO in the first place as a bulwark against Russian aggression? And yet, these countries rather, wish they were run like companies. These countries have yet to pay their proper amount of GDP for NATO protection, and yet they're somehow going to come up with hundreds of billions, the way the United States did, to fight a war that this dwarf has no chance of winning when his own people are about to throw him out of office. We're going to get into all of this in a deep dive a little bit later on, but let me just back up a second. The ones who are relying on rhetoric now exist entirely on the political left, and they realize that they've gone too far, but their cognitive dissonance will not allow them to admit that they have driven away their own best and brightest through their own insanity. They lament the fact that they don't have a well-known legacy Democratic family member who's willing to take on pharmaceutical conglomerates, who's willing to get in the face of the millions and billions of dollars behind big pharma and other major corporations. They wish they had somebody like an RFK. Well, they did have one. His name was RFK. They wish that they had a charismatic billionaire who was about to take our species interplanetary. One for the Democrats this time. Someone like Elon Musk, who could appeal to the common man while continuing to advance those big ticket issues like space exploration and development of sustainable energy. They need an Elon Musk, but for Democrats. Only they had one, His name was Elon Musk, until the insanity of their policies and the people pushing them drove him away from the party. And while we're on that subject, they wish that they had a charismatic and quite fetching female politician, unafraid to speak truth to power, unafraid to rein in the excesses of the intelligence community, unafraid to stand in the face of unconstitutional injustice and say, this will not stand, even if that meant taking on members of her own party. Why? They wish they had a Tulsi Gabbard or something. Only they had one. Her name was Tulsi Gabbard. And she was summarily and unceremoniously pushed out of the party for having the temerity to express her truly held opinions and eliminate Kamala's chances of ever being president with a 2-minute soundbite in the middle of a Democratic debate. She saw corruption in her own party and called it out. And for that, she got pushed out of the party and is now labeled, guess, a Russian asset. And most of all, in order to reach a younger generation, that particular voting demographic of young testosterone-driven men, why they wish that they had a Joe Rogan for Democrats, a Joe Rogan for the left. Well, they had one. His name was Joe Frippin' Rogan. And he slowly but surely got red-pilled, watching them go more and more insane. Starting around the 2016 mark, watching it progress, lamenting it progressing, trying to pull them back from the edge, giving interviews to anyone and everyone from both parties and from the extremes of both parties, and letting them speak their mind. And eventually, the Democrats started calling him alt-right adjacent, pushing him out. The people that he interviewed, like Jordan Peterson, were, and I quote, a dumb person's idea of a smart person. And eventually, they alienated him, and he completely shifted over to the right. None of these people wanted to walk away from the Democrat Party. They were all pushed. They were all driven. And they were all driven systematically and intentionally by the orthodoxy, by the party elite. Well, that was part of it. Part of it was just based on their own observation. There's a quote in the movie JFK. You guys have heard me use it 100 times, and I stand by it. Donald Sutherland playing X, a character based on actual real-life individual Fletcher Prouty. Fundamentally, people are suckers for the truth. And at the end of the day, the truth is squarely on our side. No thinking person can deny that any longer. But for all the leaders, it doesn't matter to them. Getting back to the European support of Zelensky, let's assume every European nation's leader supported this war, supported Zelensky as a human being. These leaders have fecklessly sat by and watched their own nations be overrun by enemies foreign from the Middle East and from sub-Saharan Africa. Their nations are festering third world cesspools, and they have allowed that to happen, not only without lifting a finger to stop it, but in the case of the UK in particular, taking vengeful actions against their own citizens who call it out. These people are going to save the day. These people are going to save Ukraine from Russian aggression, even if all of the statements of the narrative were true and correct. These are the people that are going to save them. Every one of those leaders exemplify a quote from Sun Tzu. Another one of my favorites. An evil enemy will burn his own nation to the ground to rule over the ashes. Here's the historical irony. The only chance that Europe and the West have for survival are two very unlikely candidates. One of them is a spray tanned, clown shoed, inarticulate bull in a china shop. And the other just happens to be the leader of a nation who, though we have been sold he is our mortal enemy falsely, exemplifies every single value of the cultural West and would love nothing more than to do for his people what our current leaders are trying to do for their own, which is step in and save the day against all the cultural forces arrayed against them. I happen to believe in a benevolent God. I happen to believe that we have hit a turning point. I happen to believe that this entire thing is about to shift. And we are going to bowl over every single one of those treacherous deceivers by any means necessary. We will save the West. We will stomp the terror like Supermen among Untermenschen to save the things that are good about Western civilization and Christendom. And God help anyone that gets in our way. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else is on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and I cannot stress this enough, certainly not employers. That one is for the sake of you Docs Happy and Antifa maggots out there. Good luck. You've tried before and failed. In any case, the aforementioned opinions have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. They are guaranteed to stretch, if necessary, forcefully and against your will, open that gaping maw and force feed you fistful after fistful of truth cock until you choke on it and bleed from your eye sockets. Welcome back, boys and girls. It's time once again for the Sunday sermon. Glad y'all made it out. I think the openers are starting to get a little too long-winded. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. We're going to go through the roll call real quick, but right now, everybody up for the drum roll, please. Come on with it. Yes, sir. Hard charging out of the starting gate as we always make it happen every single Sunday with notable exceptions. I'm going to go ahead and get into the roll call. The bumper music is Red Desert, a gut-stomping rock and roll band from the smoldering embers and crumbling ruins to the once great American city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. We may get to see it burn again at this rate because you know the left isn't going to give up easily. The name of the band is Red Desert. The name of the track is Older, No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older. Every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. I don't know. This week, in all honesty, is a coin toss. I'm feeling pretty good. Got the liquid enthusiasm going. Let's see who is on board. The divine Miss Emmy leading the pack. The OG sinner sister herself. Remember the Alamo and happy Texas Independence Day. Good Lord, I'm early and be back. Yeah. Happy Independence Day for all my brothers and sisters down in the Lone Star State. By the way, when they step up and talk about, yeah, man, Reconquista, I got 4 numbers for you, pal. 1836. Bring it! Ooh, too much? Maybe a little. In any case, OG, Prophet of Doom, himself, Mr. Dennis Weimer. We go a long way back. Brother Ryan, how do we feel knowing the Democrats met with Zelensky? Yeah, I commented on that early. We are definitely going to be talking about that when we get into the deep dive. It's going to be a mess, brother. It's going to be a mess. But he showed himself, man. He showed himself. We're going to get into all that when we get there. Let me just finish the roll call out. One thing at a time here, people. We got Roman, opiumtales.com, which means that his lovely wife, Carrie, is waiting in the wings at some point in some location. We're going to trip and fall over her in just a second. The mighty, mighty Stone on board. What do we got? Evening, you beautiful people. How's my favorite family of degenerates? Deacon Mark in the house, on the back porch enjoying some adult beverages and some smokable consumables. I am a couple of days into the 3rd month of the year. No cigarettes since New Year's, and I'm feeling great. No tension. Just a little bit, man. I actually think I'm pretty well past it. But every now and then you just hit that moment where it's like, dude, I would love to fire up a Camel right now. I would so love to fire up a Camel right now. There's the lovely Miss Carrie. I knew we were going to find her at some point. Let me see, man. Who else we got on board, man? A lot of people showing up early. Rolling through, see if there's anybody that I missed. The Sultan of Sarcasm himself, Mr. Joey, showing up. Glad you made it out. What is that? Teddy Roosevelt's speech on hyphenated Americans is brilliant. Yes. As is the speech that he completed after taking a gunshot to the chest. I mean, Teddy, man, look, people say what they want about it, and I understand a case can be made for some of the trust busting stuff that did get a little. It bordered on anti-capitalist. If you look at it a certain way, I get that. We can do that deep dive another day, man. But Teddy, the man, wow. Only U.S. president, man. Only U.S. president that literally brought jujitsu guys from Japan to teach him jits in the freaking White House. Boxing instructors, wrestling instructors, the strenuous life, dude. Teddy was bout it, as the kids say these days. Actually, I don't even know if the kids say that these days, but that's what I'm told the kids say these days, so we're going to roll with it. In any case, Brother Jude, man, good to see you, brother. Hope the new gig is going well. It was good talking with you the other night, man. I miss you, brother. God bless you. I love you. You stay safe out there, man. Who else have we got? Man? Scrolling through, looking. Brother James Pearson, man. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. How is Big John, by the way, man? Let me know over here in the comments. I need to get up with both y'all, man, when I come down here on this Texas trip. Man, I miss you guys. We're going to be doing some great things going forward. I say we because I'm trying to get the physical capacity back where it needs to be so I can get back into training people, man. That's been my passion. That's been my goal for the past year, is to try to get back on that and also work that into a plan with a ministry based around muscular Christianity as a political ideology. Topic for another day. In any case, Chief, I'm glad you're here, man. And say hello and thank you and give a wonderful big old hug to that lovely wife of yours, Miss Nelda. Glad to have you all on board. Man. Scrolling through, who did we? Oh my goodness! Look who has graced us with his presence early on, Brother Sonny. You know, after this week, we're all a sleeper cell, right? Like every one of these guys, me and Jude and Sincere and Turtle, Turtle, good to see you, brother. And of course, Brother Clem. Yeah, we're all a sleeper cell now, man. We are all a sleeper cell now. Made it all the way to the end of the bumper music, man. Let me go ahead and scroll this on down. I'll go ahead and finish out the roll call and everything, and then we'll jump in with this thing. What do we got here? Let me set up the next audio. There we go. Click and put that in the queue, and then we'll bounce over here. George, glad you made it out. Hope you're doing well, man. How's that kidney treating you, brother? I would like to know about that. Brother Clem, going to be seeing you very soon. Sonny, what is this? You'll be pleased to hear about what happened in Draft House last night after training. Yeah, I would. That sounds like a very, very interesting story, my brother. And if for whatever reason it doesn't get addressed in the comments, you or Clem one is going to have to give me a call when I get out of here. I would definitely like to know what happened there at Draft House after. Wow. I'll be seeing you soon enough. But I definitely want the details to get a phone call, but I'll be happy to get the face-to-face description when I see you here in a little bit. Brother Jake on board. Captain Truth Rooster. I like way to put the kid filter on, man. We can't say the truth. See, I like that. That was clever, brother. That was clever. I like it a lot. Oh my goodness, man. What a crazy bunch. We got them all here. Oh my goodness. Clem helped someone to sleep. I think I can. Okay. Not knowing the situation, let's see how accurate my register is. You're at the Draft House. There are people there indulging in adult sodas, and somebody had a little too much indulgence in an adult soda and decided that he would make an effort, something very much out of line. And let me guess. He selected Clem because of the accent, thinking that somehow this would be an easy mark. He talks like one of them French faggots, man. I'm gonna beat his ass, and and then you're waking up. Oh my goodness. Look, am I close? Am I? Oh my god! You know, for you guys that haven't hung out with this crowd, and particularly you guys that don't know Clem, um, you can't have you can't have a full appreciation. The deacon was the target. Somebody went after. Oh my goodness! Somebody went after Deacon Mark. Wow. Uh, this just keeps getting better. You know what, guy? I am going to call. Yeah, Clem. Actually, yeah, Jake had something very similar happen to him recently. Wow, man, he went after Deacon Mark. That that's a bad call, man. That's a bad call. First of all, what kind of jerk do you have to be? What kind of jerk do you have to be to go after Deacon Mark, man? Like I can't. I've never seen Deacon Mark in a bad mood. I would imagine, it's not completely out of character for him. He's probably he's probably got some things that trip his trigger a little bit. Generally not in public, but what kind of asshole do you have to be where you're going to go after Deacon Mark? You started the process and Clint finished it. I love it, man. I love it. You know what? Here's the deal, guys. I'm going to call Sonny or Mark or Clem or one of you guys. You've all got my number. When I get up off of here, somebody give me a call because I want the full breakdown on this. But I'm visualizing it, and Clem is not a big specimen of a guy, man. He's not one of these, big strapping, muscle bound, loud dudes. He's very, very self effacing, very reserved, and as is Deacon Mark. I can't even. We'll finish it out once this is over. Give me a call because I got to know how this whole thing transpired. I can see it ending the way that it ended. What I can't put together in my head is how a situation like that even begins with the individuals in question. It just doesn't stand to reason. However, when adult beverages are being consumed, I think we've all seen weirder. I think we've all seen much, much weirder. This is one of the reasons why I don't go to bars as a general rule. Like I will go with my brothers, but as a general rule, I just don't. It's something not to bring up Gabe, Sonny, because I don't think either one of us have seen Gabe in a minute. But that was one of Suarez's old rules. Don't go to places where stupid people do stupid stuff, and I avoid bars for that very reason. Which, by the way, has anybody heard from Gabe in a minute? Topic for another time, dude. We'll just leave that to the guys in the circle. Let me get the sponsor shout outs out of the way real quick, man, because I want to jump off into this stuff. We got a lot to cover, man. And again, if I go off on a tangent, because this is something that's really been developing lately, man, I have been sort of just letting the spirit take me and just run with it. If I am getting that voice in my head that's saying, hey, bro, you got this right now, get on fire with the spirit and roll with it, then I'm rolling with it. I've got my bullet points of stuff that I like to get into, but, boss man sends a spirit and says, you're taking this in a different direction. We're going in a different direction, which, by the way, I got to give props to my church here in Winnemucca, Living Stones. What a great little church. I'm really, really blessed that God put me in this place, that I could have this experience with Living Stones. We had a guest pastor in from one of the other Living Stones churches. Spanish Springs, I believe, is the one that he came up from, man, and he dropped some heavy, heavy. We're still in the book of Revelation. We're still technically a part of that series, like Between Two Worlds, that we've been covering, pretty much the whole time that I've been here, which again, boss man, divine plan, laid it all out. Hey, Bart, why am I here? Here's why you're here. You were going to hear this and you're going to run with it. But he dropped it in, and we're getting into chapter 22, and the return, the descent of the holy city, the New Jerusalem, descending from the skies, man. And bro, he was on fire, man. I was just my normally exuberant amen corner was just chest thumping and bring that, yes, Amen. I might have made some people uncomfortable, but I think I inspired just as many because I got people back behind me now that are chiming in. And if I can bring that enthusiasm and people have got the spirit rolling through them, and we can bring that, then God bless us all, man. God bless us all. I'm totally happy with that. Sponsor shout outs, real quick, of course. Brother Roman, one of my oldest and dearest friends over at opiumtales.com. Roman Riva on Amazon. You can find him. He's got 2 books out now. One is Roman Freely, which is a collection of all his watercolor work, and the other is From Dork to Pimp Daddy, which is basically his journey from being a Joe Texlub to being a man who gets paid for the privilege of doing beautiful watercolor work of beautiful naked women and gets paid to do so. Nice work if you can get it. He's got his website, opiumtales.com, where not only they're the erotic pinups and portraits people, they're doing the beautiful watercolor work with those beautiful naked women, and they've got testosterone driven commentary on Planet Bar. That's a trifecta. So go check them out. Opiumtales.com and Roman Riva on Amazon. Roman Freely, collection of his work, and From Dork to Pimp Daddy, which is basically his origin story. Check that out. Also, my Viking brothers, Casey and Dusty Tellison, Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest. Period. End of statement. Done. You can try to protest that, and I'm going to clown you like J.D. Vance clown that little U-crop coat dwarf. Don't don't take it there, brother. Don't take it. And if you try to muddle under your breath, I'm gonna catch it and I'm gonna light your ass up. In any case, want to go to Appaloosa, Louisiana, 5 days for 50. Oh man, why are you gonna do that to me? Why are you gonna do that to me right now, bro? Ryan, hit me up after the program. Yeah, Ryan, hit me up after the program. Don't derail. I can't get derailed on that right now. But that's a sweet looking offer. We'll talk. In any case, Casey and Dusty Tellison, Nordic Smoke Barbecue, only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest. Check out Dusty's little video one-offs on any of his social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, any of the stuff. He's a very funny guy, excellent pit master. Casey, the other Viking brother, combat vet, saw gunner, did some time in the big sandbox, and he's got a book out called Freaks of a Feather from Latop Press out of Spokane, Washington. That's available on Amazon, and you are going to want to check that out. It is a combat memoir that started out as a suicide note. That should be all the promo that I need to give it. All the guys that are here in the comments that have read that book, they will attest to it. Not only is it a phenomenally written book, but he is a phenomenally gifted writer, and I can't wait to see any of the follow-ups that he chooses to do behind this in other subject fields. Right now, he's passed the bar and he's a practicing attorney. So, Casey, we're really proud of you. So that's my guys from Nordic Smoke Barbecue and my guys from opiumtales.com. Take care of the people that take care of the program. We're trying to build some community here. These are the guys that make it possible for me to do this. Especially in the times that I'm not working. Right now, I happen to be working, so it's easier for me to do this as a labor of love. But, the actual support for the program, and you guys that do support me, you know who you are. God bless you. I really appreciate it. Everything. And just, it's such a gift, and it's such an honor. But mostly the honor is me being able to carry a message. As long as I can continue to touch people, as long as I can continue to deliver something, even if it's something that just makes people pause for like a split second and think, maybe rethink something, where the thought process has gotten stagnant, and I can just, something that I say happens to make them reflect on something, to take that thought process in a different direction, make them re-examine something that they haven't really looked at in a long time. I consider it a win, bro. I consider it a win. If you guys can kick down. If not, I'm totally cool with that. I just want to take the time to express the thanks for the people that do. I really, really appreciate y'all, man. I love you for that. Thank you very much. So let's jump into it, man. We'll start with the bullet points, and we will see where we're going to come up with that, because I am touching on religious things and Western civilization and people inside Western nations that seek to destroy it from within. I wanted to get into this mass graves thing up in Canada. Now, this started roughly 3 years ago, with some of the roots going back further, where Canada had Canada had a system of residential schools way back in the day where a lot of the natives, particularly like in Kamloops, right? Kamloops is actually closer to my side of Canada. It's actually closer to Washington than it is like the Canada you guys normally think of over on the east side. But in any case, those residential schools that a lot of Native American kids attended, look, man, say what you want. This is the law of conquest, and this isn't a discussion that I want to get into. But they set up these schools to make sure that these native kids who were a conquered people, rather than completely act, because you know what normally happens after a people get conquered? It's a G word. Help me out here. You guys have seen it. We're constantly being killed. Oh yeah, genocide. That's normally what happens. Once a people have been conquered, they normally continue to go through and kill every last man, woman, and child. They finish the job or completely enslave them. This is not what white Europeans did to the First Nations people. That's not what we're here for today. Today, this bullet point is one specific aspect of it, and it's the residential schools. Ground penetrating radar found some unusual structures close to some of these residential schools, right? So we, rather than investigate and come to a logical conclusion and actually do some digging, figuratively and literally, they just jumped to the conclusions that these were mass graves. They were mass graves that were put there to hide the bodies of people who had been victimized and demoralized and dehumanized and raped and savaged and murdered, because that's what Whitey does. And so they just jumped straight to that conclusion. These unusual things that we're finding in the ground penetrating radar reports, this is it couldn't be anything else. It could only be mass graves, because Whitey killed the Indians and raped them and did all sorts of horrible things, and he did it under the banner of God, right? Because what unfounded accusation against white Europeans would be complete without taking a dig at the boss man and the carpenter, right? Because that's why we do the things that we do. We colonize the world and kill and rape and pillage and murder everybody for two things: God and apparently spices, which hundreds of years later we apparently don't use on our food, as long as we're just running with the systemic narrative. I digress. This thing kicked off particularly around Kamloops, and of course, Trudeau, ever the white guilted, I can't apologize and prostrate myself enough, apologizing for things that never happened. Plenty of us were looking at it and going, dude, you don't have any evidence of the things that you're saying. And of course, the response was, how dare you deny what is obviously the case, you white colonizing bigot? Because that's all the factual refutation we need anymore. You're white, shut up. We have our narrative. We have decided on it. That's it. That's it. These are mass graves. You need to start apologizing. And in the meantime, let me tell you what the social backlash caused. And these are things that are facts. And I'm just going to run down on a quick, a couple of bullet points. I've got a ton of stuff here, and I really want to go on a tear about it. But we're going to keep that tear within some reasonable parameters today. As fired up as I am about this, I could do an hour blindfolded on this one particular issue. But the Kamloops case, starting in 2021, being encouraged, de facto encouraged to do so, because just like back then, hey, guy has a political opinion that you don't agree with, punch a Nazi, right? Totally okay. Totally okay to walk up and just punch a random stranger in the face for wearing a MAGA hat. Totally okay to walk up behind an elderly guy in Portland, smack him in the back of the head with a pipe wrench, despite the fact that he's a 70-year-old retiree, because he's wearing a MAGA hat. Punch a Nazi. It's all good as long as their opinions are all bad. This is the way that it works. With the left, there are no exceptions. I'm tired of entertaining the possibility that, well, not all leftists. Stop. Just stop. This is who they are. We need to start addressing them accordingly. We need to start interacting with them accordingly. And I got to admit, here's where I need to have a big mea culpa moment. I have been wrong. I have been absolutely wrong, because what I've been telling people is disengage, right? That may have been the right advice at the time, but that no longer holds because disengaging doesn't work. You can walk away from them, and you, you can walk away from them. They will continue to chase, no matter how wrong they are. You can demonstrate factually how wrong they are. You can prove it beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt. They will double down on the misconception. They will double down on the misinformation, and they will continue to pursue you. The only saving grace that we have right now is thanks to God and the American electorate, we have a 4-year stay of execution where they don't hold any state sponsored power right now to inflict their ideological damage on the cultures that they seek to undermine and ultimately destroy. But this is how it worked in the Kamloops case. The media lamenting it. Are they small mass graves or supersized mass graves? Are there dozens of bodies buried there or hundreds, perhaps even thousands? Is this a cover-up for an even larger group of mass graves that we haven't found yet? Oh, the tragedy of it. Forsooth, forsooth, please get me my fainting couch. Bad Whitey, bad Whitey, bad Whitey, apologize. Lo and behold, the skeptics were correct. And this week it came out that it was all bullshit. From number one, when I say mass graves Canada, number one report. The first one that they found, the first anomaly that they found that they assigned to being a mass grave, turned out it was a septic tank. Yeah, this underground structure that could only have been a mass grave to stash the raped and dismembered bodies of Native American children. It turned out not only were there no human remains, but the structure itself was a septic tank. How beautifully appropriate for a narrative that was completely full of shit. This is where we're at. From the Daily Wire, the mass graves hoax is officially dead and no one will be held accountable. That's correct. Okay. This from back in October of last year, 3 years later, this is where everybody started to break from it because initially it was like the Jussie Smollett case. You have to accept it because bad Whitey, and if you disagree with it, it's because you're a colonizer and a bigot, and you're ashamed to own your historical legacy as a bitter, evil white man, cis hetero, yada 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 Christian. Right, because we got to get Christian in there somehow. What would we be? What would we be as genocidal racist if it wasn't for that crucifix right out front on our shield? Where would we be? I mean, we'd have nothing to kill people over. In any case, October of last year, article came out from the National Catholic Register because the Catholic Church, of course, being the founders of a lot of these residential schools, were the first to mea culpa, mea culpa, mea culpa, and prostrate themselves in front of it because that was the point where we were culturally. Remember, it hasn't been that long, guys. 3 years ago, that's where we were culturally. We couldn't apologize enough for all the terrible, horrible things that we've done to all these wonderful places that we've managed to colonize over the years. We couldn't apologize enough for showing them, sustainable agriculture and the joys of indoor plumbing and paved roads and representative government and building electrical infrastructures and doubling their life expectancy and cutting their infant mortality rate in half. What terrible, terrible people we are. But, that's an African thing. Let's get back to Canada. The National Catholic Register in October of last year finally started to say, hey, wait a minute. Look, dude, we've been bending over backwards apologizing to you guys, and you still haven't brought any proof. 3 years later, Canadian mass graves claims remain unproven, right? Again, starting from the position of guilt, and prove to me, Whitey, that you're not a genocidal racist. Prove to me that it's not a mass grave. And Mind Matters actually came out acknowledging the faux pas here. Canada's residential schools, a saga of journalistic wrongdoing. This wasn't journalistic wrongdoing. This wasn't what they are suggesting is that these people just didn't do their due diligence. It wasn't about doing due diligence. This was deliberate, okay? This was absolutely deliberate. They know what they're doing and they know how to twist the arm when it comes to emotions. We got to see the same thing again with the Zelensky episode. This is who these people are in the media. This is who these people are at the propaganda ministry and how they operate. They know how to get into the emotions and twist people up. They know how to do it. They have honed it down to a very, very exact science. They're very, very good at what they do. You've heard me say it before. I have a grudging respect for people who can lie that well and manipulate the thoughts of people that thoroughly, to the people whose own thoughts are being manipulated don't realize that they are dancing on the end of those puppet strings, but they are. So now that it's been proven BS, well, can we let bygones be bygones? No, we cannot, because starting in 2021, May of 2021, between 2021 and December of 2023, there were 24 arsons in Christian churches in Canada. Okay. Law enforcement, politicians, tribal officials suspected that the arsons were motivated by anger. Now again, they're saying suspected that the arsons were motivated by anger toward Christians over the schools and the grave sites. There wasn't anything about suspected. These people left notes. These people sent detailed letters to media organizations. This is why we burned your church down. We are going to take back all of Canada for the Native American people, and it starts with the cross and the Christian lie that got us into this position in the first place. American Magazine, Church Burnings in Canada Tied to Unproven Discovery of Mass Graves. National Review, Canada gives up trying to prove the mass grave hoax. This is prior to how the Catholic Church was addressing it. Revisiting Canada's collective guilt for the mass murder. This is the full name of the story. I want to make sure that I get this right. Revisiting Canada's collective guilt for mass murders that were never committed. Okay? Hate crime hoax. I want you to Google that. If you need the link, there is an entire database dedicated to it. Okay? You will note, and this is again an element of good propaganda, you present half the story, but you don't finish the sentence. You will note that we're constantly bombarded with reports of hate crimes. Reported hate crimes are up threefold since Donald Trump took office. Reports of hate incidents have tripled since this happened. Reports of hate crimes. They never say hate crimes have doubled. Reports of hate crimes have doubled or tripled or whatever. And it's always tied back to the same thing. Bad whitey, bad Christian, bad Jesus, same thing. They say hate crime reports because once you examine them on a case-by-case basis, almost without exception, they are, best case scenario, wildly exaggerated and out of context. Worst case scenario, outright falsehoods. There's an entire database dedicated to it. Yeah, the hate crime hoax database. You can find it. It's a little bit difficult. You're probably going to have to use one of the other search engines because the Google algorithm won't allow for it. Guys, Roman, if you're still here, if you can find a good link to post over here in the comments, if you can find it, the hate crime hoax database. They know what they're doing. They know that even though it should be played out, and that it's been done literally to death, that it's still going to carry some weight because it appeals directly to emotion. They carried this for 3 years. The media wouldn't let it go for 3 years. Okay. American politicians prostrating themselves quite publicly. The sanctimony on display was vomit inducing. Trudeau, same thing, right? But as it turns out, the only mass grave is the one where the narrative now has to go to die. Unfortunately, in the process of that, 21 churches burned. 21 churches. I'm going to pop that up again. Church burnings. There we go. There we go. Yeah, from the New York Post back in November of last year, the weak response to religious arson has been alarming. And this is where it all ties together with Trudeau. People were petitioning Trudeau's government, right? And after the arsons, right, came another wave of arsons and vandalism. All in total, 112 Christian churches were either burned to everything from major vandalism, right, to outright arson to being burned to the ground. 112 Christian churches. 112 Christian churches. 33, at least 33 of those were burned to the ground arsons. And Trudeau, rather than address it as the issue, did what so many politicians here did for the longest time when the left still carried weight. Well, yes, we're going to investigate it because we're all agreed that violence is really, really bad, okay? Violence is bad, but you do have to take into account that insert justification here, right? That's fine. I get that on a root level, totally get that on a root level. All right, cool, you know. But that takes it back to a war footing, doesn't it? If you were going to say that anything that they do in response to a series of lies is still somehow justified because of things that happened back then, well, then you're putting it back within the context of conflict and conquest, which means that if the war's still on, maybe we should finish the job. Now, we would prefer to just return things to the place where they were, where we came in, and as Westerners and as white Europeans, we came in and made things better for everyone, right? We'd prefer to take it back to there. But if you want to take it back to the war's not over yet, we are at a position in history where you have enough who are products of white European civilization who will be willing to oblige you because the guilt trip is played out. We don't hate anyone. This isn't we are going out of our way to look to track down to cause violent incidents and conquer territory and any of it. This is not where it's going to come from. We made amends. This is the way that it works. But if you wish to re-engage in a fight, what we are not going to do is sit here and go, oh, we feel so bad. Totally okay that you come in and burn our churches down because of what people did that we never got to meet. They're all dead. And so are the people that you're talking about that were victimized. Oh, wait, there weren't any of those. The mass graves were an entire hoax, like so many other hate crimes. It was a lie. We're tired of buying that. Of course, you are going to have some who will. Some people are always going to follow the white guilt train. Roman, I'm glad that you're here because you can attest, because a lot of people will not believe it. I got caught up in that. I did. Early 90s, I had a few years where I went hard left owing to some ideological things that had happened and some personal things that had happened in my life. And I went hard left and I pulled into the white guilt train station for a couple of years. A couple of years I did. In fact, Roman can attest to this. He has literally seen me publicly advocate back in the day. He has seen me publicly advocate for hate crime legislation. He has seen me publicly prostrate myself in that guilty for being white thing. He's seen it happen, right? That's how long Roman's been around. But yeah, everything it's a very seductive philosophy, man. It's a very seductive philosophy for people who want to think that they know something that elevates them somehow in the knowledge base. Almost like the conspiracy thing, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. But yes, for bullet point number one, these mass graves across Canada, don't exist, never existed, and therefore, the 33 churches that were burned to the ground and the over 100 churches that were burned, scorched, torched, vandalized, spray painted, windows busted out, property damage, and every other thing. All of it completely unnecessary. Will there be any apologies? Of course there won't. Will there be any accountability? Of course they won't. The people that were responsible, if they got caught, given Canada, they would have been turned loose with a slap on the wrist. Most of them were never caught. You guys remember during the fentanyl Floyd riots, DAs in Portland and Seattle, literally hundreds of Antifa maggots were caught. Everything from arson to aggravated assault, and charges were either dropped or minimized or they refused to prosecute, period. This is the way that they handle things when they have power. They are not deterred by anything. They realize what we are just now coming around to understanding, that it's a fight and they plan to win. The morality of the whole thing doesn't exist to them. That's why they are able to flex with that emotional appeal. They don't care. They don't feel guilty about any of the damage that was done during the riots in 2020. They still insist that they were mostly peaceful. Okay. You can't deal with people like that. But again, I've been wrong because I've been suggesting disengage, and that's not the way anymore. We don't disengage, particularly now that we politically have the upper hand. We charge, we crush, we steamroll, we drop our heads like an albino rhino and bowl them right the hell over. We crush everything. We trample them. No mercy, no warning, no nothing. Because we've got this opportunity by the grace of God and nothing else to turn this thing around. A 4-year stay of execution. That is all that we have. If we squander it, we deserve everything that happens to us. Right now, they have painted us as one thing. Accurately or no, they have painted us in one box since 2016 at the very least, and in my opinion, long before that we are this, that we are that. It is time to show them. It is time to show them what it looks like when we are actually angry. It is time to show them what it looks like when we actually have to step up to the mantle because they have left us no other option. So I suggest that we do that. Most Ricky Tick, we need to get on that program. And as far as breaking away from engagements, no, don't disengage. Confront directly. You don't have to be hostile about it. You don't need to be angry about it. It doesn't help to be angry or hostile about it. Just keep a metered voice and speak the truth directly to these people. When they hit you with some absurdity about mass graves in Canada, you dress them down. You dress them down directly for how ridiculous they are. When they spew platitudes about diversity being our strength, you confront that directly. At the very least, just laugh. Just laugh in their faces, okay? But it's time that we flex a little bit. It's time that we get confrontational because we're going to be accused of the worst of it anyway, okay? If you're going to pay, play. We are in a fight. We have got the upper hand. We are moving forward for the first time in I can't remember when. And we've got a very, very limited window of time, maybe even more limited than we think. Every bit of ground that we can grab it. Period. End of statement. Done. The only mass grave that exists in Canada is the one where we are going to lay this narrative, because this narrative is dead. This, like so many other facetious, BS, unfounded hate crime narratives, it's done. Absolutely done. Do you understand? Is everybody up to snuff on that? And we can move on to the next bullet point. Good. Glad to hear it. Absolutely glad to hear it. Glad we're all on the same page. Okay. Um, Romania. Let's jump into Romania real quick. Okay. Roman, I know you're going to be. I know you're going to be on point for this. Colin Georgescu. I know I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of the man's name. Georgescu sounds like Ceausescu, doesn't it? Right? They He basically won the election. He won the Romanian election. However, however, like so many other things, the EU knows better than its own citizens. Okay, and basically they annulled the results of the Romanian election, crying that there was interference. One guess where the interference came from. Of course, Putin and his tentacular grip, because he's into everything, isn't he? Right? They put him in jail. They put this presidential candidate in jail. After annulling the election, they locked him away. Wow, this sounds vaguely familiar, like something you might have seen in Ukraine, where the poll said that they wanted Zelensky out, and Zelensky suspended elections under emergency powers. We're at war. We can't have a free election right now. Same in Romania. Same in Romania. Oh, this is who you guys voted for? Well, we can't have that because we've got evidence of Russian interference, and that puts us in a state of emergency. So we've got to annul the elections. Oh, and now that we've annulled the elections, we're going to take the candidate that you voted for and we're going to put him in jail. Public pressure eroded that very, very quickly, and he was ultimately released. Here's the lesson. Here's the takeaway. The last time the Romanians found themselves in a position that they didn't like, the last time that a power outside of the Romanian people, I'm talking about at that point, it was Soviet communism or the Romanian iteration of Soviet communism, took the people in a direction that the people were no longer willing to go, they drug Nicolae Ceausescu and his shrieking little wife, drugged them out of the royal palace on the sidewalk in front of the palace, machine gunned them to death on television on Christmas. Little word to the wise for the European Union, and they talked about this. And how does this all tie in with what's going on this week? Well, Keir Starmer, for one, basically came out and said, well, Britain's got free speech. No, Britain does not have free speech. People are being put in jail. People are being put in jail for reposting, not even posting, reposting memes. People are being put in jail in the United Kingdom. Okay? The European Union has... I love you, Ryan. I freaking love you, man. Right? Yeah, Joey, and that's excellent. You may all have democracy, but only if you use it right. Yeah, that would seem to be how it goes. Matthew, I'm glad you made it out. Roman, yes, all your friends voted for Georgescu. Am I pronouncing his last name correctly? I have the toughest time, man, because Romanian is like a tough language, man. Like Ceausescu, the way that Ceausescu is spelled, you know what I mean? It just doesn't roll off the tongue like that. So I certainly don't mean it to be insulting. Here's the point. The European Union has far and away basically said, look, we will annul, you have the freedom to vote. You have the freedom to speak. You better start speaking and voting how we tell you to, or we're just going to annul the whole thing. They basically said that they were going to do that in the German elections, right? Had the AfD come out top dog in the German elections just recently, the European Union fully intended to annul those results as well. Okay? Don't talk to me about how you're trying to save democracy. And this is all going to tie back in to the little coke-addled dwarf here in a minute. Okay? Don't tell me how you're trying to save democracy for the sake of people who are literally suspending elections. Europe, white Europe gave us representative government. Do you understand that? The UK in particular. Do you understand? Stewardescu. Now I'm Romanian. All right, cool. Yes, I am Romanian, Sonny. I am Romanian and a closet Vladimir Putin adjacent sleeper cell. That's beautiful. The way that they're cracking down, people. the way that they're cracking down. We gave the world representative government. We gave the world the Magna Carta, right? Mother England's bastard child, the United States of America, handed down the United States Constitution, one of the most brilliantly written pieces of something to organize a government, one of the most brilliant founding documents ever conceived by the mind of man. The founders were absolutely brilliant men. Absolutely brilliant men. Yeah, but they were slave owners, so we got to disregard everything. Eat, just forget it. Forget it. Right? Right. This is how they're brought up. This is how you destroy a culture from the inside out. But we've hit that tipping point. We're getting people to push back now. People are pulling their kids out. They're putting them into school. We have people who are becoming politically active that are making it vital and mandatory that we actually teach the things that did make America great in the first place. I'll give you a little insight here why I'm a little less than objective about this. I was in first grade, 1976, America's bicentennial, man. And I was a bookworm little kid. I got obsessed, man. Obsessed with the origins. Our country's 200 years old now, man. That's really cool. How did we come about? And I read everything that I could get my hands on about the American Revolution. I read everything that I could get my hands on about the founders. I actually had a board game. I actually had a bicentennial board game. Yeah, it was the coolest thing. I knew about Marquis de Lafayette, right? I knew about the German Hessian mercenaries. I was in first grade and I could recite everything like this about the Marquis de Lafayette and the importance of the French involvement, the atrocities of the German Hessian mercenaries being unleashed against the colonists. Like all this, I was in first grade and I had all this stuff, man. This stuff still boils in me, right? I was in school in an era where we were still taught, rightly, we were still taught the greatness of our nation. Were our founders flawed? Of course they are. Heroic men have heroic flaws. Say it with me, make it a frippin' hashtag. Heroic men have heroic flaws. But this is European thought. This is Western civilization thought. This is Christendom thought. The sovereignty of the individual, representation in government, all of these things, gifts of the West. And the West themselves, the leaders now of the West, are trying to erode it. The guy that we are told is our existential threat, our bitter enemy, is actually the guy who is carrying the values that used to be associated with the West. Are you tracking here? Am I saying that Putin doesn't use violence against his political opponents? No, I'm not saying that. Am I suggesting that Putin isn't outright authoritarian in many respects? Am I suggesting that? Not at all. Not at all. Here's what I am suggesting: that the man does everything that he does with the interests of the Russian people at heart, that he is a leader for his people. The same thing they try to sell us about Zelensky. He is a leader for his people, and he will look out for his people's national interests. He will look out for the interests of his people, his nation, and, wait for it, because we're about to use the F word, his faith. What you are not going to see is Vladimir Putin shutting down Orthodox churches, protecting democracy. Get mad. The man that we are sold as the biggest threat to Western civilization is the guy who's literally carrying the mantle for those Western values. Do you understand that? Taking care of his own people, taking care of his own nation, the sense of pride in his people and his nation. Not throwing open the door to outsiders, taking the interests of his people first, above and beyond anything else. This used to be the province of American leaders, even though Europe kind of fell off after the colonial era. This used to be the province of American leaders. Guys like Teddy, man. Guys like Teddy, since we brought him up in the opener, right? Say what you want about some of the things that he did with trust busting and things like that. You could make a case that he sort of pushed back against capitalism. I don't really happen to believe that, but you can make a case for it. But he took care of America, man. It's our nation and our people. And these are the things that we expect out of you if you are going to consider yourself an American, if you are going to walk as an American, if you were going to ally yourself with American interests. This is what we expect of you. This isn't just a free ride. This isn't come gimme, gimme. No, we don't roll like that. America finally, this election has demonstrated that the fuse was not too wet to be lit. Was that we still had enough of that fire to push back and say, no, man, this isn't the country I grew up in. You can finagle your intellectual gymnastics over here with Olga Korbert's 72 uneven parallel bars. You can do that. We're not buying it. We know what our real history is, in spite of what you've sold us. What you've sold us in your indoctrination classes is that we are pathetic and terminally flawed, irredeemable, the worst place you can possibly imagine, which is odd considering everyone else in the entire world risks their lives to get here. Why would they do that for a racist hellhole? The mind boggles. In any case, we're finally getting it back. We're finding our spines. We're letting our balls drop. And we've got people who are not going to lean on rhetoric. We've got people who are leaning on action. And they are doing things that are rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. And it should. And good. Because they know what I've been telling you pretty much across the board for a long time. But even today in particular, they know what I'm telling you. We have a very limited window. We have a very limited window, and we've got to push for every single thing that we can get. We can entrench our feet into the ground to where we are not going to be moved off that position. It's going to take just as long to get us off that position as it took for us to get around to push back against the Obama era and everything that was sold. Do you understand the depth and the enormity of the principles they put in place? This was systemic and it was systematic, okay? They knew exactly what they were doing, from the judiciary to the bureaucracy and all of these other things, to make sure that it functioned 100% as an instrument for the democratic machine. Everything from the NGOs, the NGO. What NGO? What does NGO stand for? Non-governmental organization. And yet when Doge hit USAID, all these NGOs came crawling out of the woodwork to scream about how they wouldn't be able to exist and do their very, very necessary work without contributions from USAID. Let me tell you something, Sparky. If you cannot exist without money being handed to you by the federal government, you are not, wait for it, you are not a non-governmental organization. This is what people don't understand. The subtleties, the nuances, all of this. These NGOs crawling out of the woodwork. What are we going to do? This is vital work that's carrying on. Well, if it was that vital, how come you can't fund it without handouts from the federal government? And why do those handouts keep coming? Because no one will step to you. No one will step to you because you are single-handedly part of this machine that they have spent years putting into place. And that machine's being dismantled right now. Glory to God, that machine is being dismantled. Piece by piece and inch by inch, we are taking it down. We were going to unmount it to the last freaking bolt. We're going to tear it down, and we are going to get things back to where they had originally been through the intent of the founders. God help you if you stand in our way. God help you if you stand in our freaking way. We're rolling, and we're not making any apologies for it. None. Needs to. Yes, it does need to be uncomfortable. You're damn right. Damn right. Necessary for money laundering, for sure. For sure. Okay? But getting back to it. Where the hell was I? Yeah, the bullet point. Yeah. Romania. Romania is just a symbol of what the globalist interests are willing to do. Okay. The people have pushed back and they said no. We witnessed in 2020 here in the United States what the machine can do. But in 2024, it was too big to rig. In 2024, the voice of the people stood up, thumped our chest, and we said enough. The people of Europe are getting to that point, will get to that point. Some nations, people are saying it may be too late. I don't happen to believe that. I believe it looks really, really bad. But you know what? I have my faith in a much higher power. You guys saw the t-shirt this week. Fear God, not the government. I'm not worried about the governments over there. The governments are there, instituted as part of that machine. They have thrown open the borders, and this is why we don't worry about Zelensky. Well, Trump's not going to give him money. He's just going to go to Europe, and Europe's going to help him out. Oh, Europe's going to help him out. That's interesting because they can't manage to close off their own borders to protect their own people. Muslim and African nations have laid waste to our European homelands for over a decade now, pouring in unchecked. The violence that they have brought, the rape that they have brought, the criminality that they have brought, while hardworking members of those European nations, citizens of those European nations, have to toil and have their tax money go to putting these freeloaders up, subsidizing them living there. They could not afford it otherwise. And if you speak out against it, the government comes down on who? The government comes down on you. These governments no longer represent their people. And sooner or later, something in the European spirit, you may not agree, but I believe something in the European spirit is going to prevent that. Something in the European spirit is going to get to the point where they say enough. Enough. We are not going to go gentle into that good night. We are not going to sit by idly and watch our children murdered. We're not going to sit by idly and watch our women raped. We are not going to sit by idly and continue to work for those interests where you will not even take a stand for your own people. Why do you think military enlistment is back up since Trump got into office? Why do you think it went down before that? Because it was not many people are behind Doge and all these other things that the propaganda ministry keeps telling us we are required to hate. Why? Because it's representing the interests of the people. Why do you think they let Georgescu out of jail? Because the people stood. European Union leaders, globalist shills that they are not going to take the lesson. But I'm going to present the lesson to you so you can take it. So the next step that comes down while everybody else is going, oh my goodness, I couldn't have seen that coming, you will know. They've had enough. They voted. Again, something that we gave the world, representative government. And the EU said, oh, is that who you wanted? Well, that isn't who we wanted. So we're going to let you vote again until you get it right. All my friends in the UK, what do you think they did? What do you think they did with Brexit? What do you think that was all about? How many times do they have to run Brexit? Because they ran Brexit up the flagpole thinking, what kind of idiots are going to vote for Brexit? Oh, what, they voted for it? Oh, no. They did. Wow. Okay, let's pull it back and let's throw it out there again and just kind of give them a stronger hint this time. Okay, guys, we're gonna vote on Brexit again. You guys know how to vote, right? What do you mean they voted for it again? Imagine the horror. Imagine the horror in the corridors of power. Imagine the horror in the corridors of power now. With Darth Cheeto, the Mango Menace, being reelected by an American public that had seen what they had to offer and said, no, we're going to take the orange fella. They are having to respond. And they're terrified. They don't know what to do with it. Europe's not going to be as nasty, but it could get nastier in the streets because you don't have the firearms in the equation, right? Going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But for Romania, this is something that I've heard before too. And Sonny, if you're still here, you can attest to this for me as well. Former communist bloc countries are the ones who are carrying the mantle for Western civilization now. Former communist bloc countries are the ones who are having the strongest spiritual, Christian, and Catholic cultural revival now because they've seen what the globalist agenda looks like in its final form, right? When the globalist agenda, when the Klaus Schwabs of the world, those Super Scion or whatever the cartoon reference is, when they achieve their final form, the communist bloc nations, the citizens there, particularly the older ones, they know what comes with that, and they want no part of it. That's why you see Viktor Orban in Hungary having the support of the people, the Hungarian people behind him. That's why you see the people in Poland. That's why you see what is happening in Romania right now. They see, and they've had enough. Thankfully, Poland and right now Hungary with Viktor Orban have leaders in place that are like, no, man, we hear you, and we're here for the people, and we are going to screw the EU, basically. That's what Orban said to him, at least. Orban in Hungary, F the EU, man. We got no use for that. Tell us we're going to take on it. No, we're not going to take on refugees. We're not going to take on your refugees. We're not going to do it because we see what's happened in all these other countries, and our people don't want it, so we're not going to do it. We'll fine you. We'll penalize you. We don't give a damn. Hell, man, kick us out. Cut us loose. And as a result, how many terrorist attacks in Poland? Wow, right. How many big terrorist attacks in Hungary? Right. How much of a skyrocket in the occurrence of rapes, let alone gang rapes? Do you see in Poland or Hungary or Romania? Where is it? Oh yeah, it's not happening. You know where it is happening? Sweden, Germany, every other nation that has let these savages in. Culturally, they're incompatible. And don't hit me with particularly if you're a non-believer, don't hit me with, well, you know, Jesus would. Shut up. That is it. You gotta love people like that, don't you? The ones who are like, well, you know, I think your whole Sky Daddy thing is stupid, and I don't read your book, but somebody gave me this verse that like supports my political narrative, so I'm gonna try to guilt you with it. Okay, whatever. Because one thing that Christianity would never expect of its most devout followers, the one thing that the carpenter and the boss man and the Holy Spirit would not expect is for us to sit idly by as people who have outright, verbally, vocally, and vehemently, 3 V's, vocally, vehemently, have stated that they want to see our faith and our people and our bloodline killed. No matter what that pastor with the rainbow and BLM flags on his pulpit has to say to you about how Jesus would welcome these people in, he is lying. He is, in fact, doing the devil's work. Bart's really on a Bible thumping tear now, isn't he? Yeah. Because you know what else I had growing up? I told you about my bicentennial thing growing up. You know what else I had growing up? I was a Reagan kid. Yeah. D. James Kennedy. I was raised in the church, but I would watch my pastors on the weekends. D. James Kennedy. He was one of the first to really broach the whole thing, tying the Christian belief system in with the politics of anti-communism at the time. And I watched him every Sunday. I'll tell you somebody else I watched every Sunday on the opposite end of the spectrum, Jimmy Swaggart. Yeah, Swaggart. I did. I saw Swaggart live. That's right, at the old Charlotte Coliseum. I went and caught a Jimmy Swaggart crusade live at the old Charlotte Coliseum. Never got to see D. James Kennedy. But Kennedy, I bring that up because Kennedy laid it out. D. James Kennedy laid it out. Right. All of the stuff when it comes to, they will constantly try to guilt you, these fake ass pastors that will try to guilt you with that. Oh, Jesus would welcome these people in. No, he would not. No, he would not. Not without asking them to change. He certainly would not. He's just going to welcome them in with open arms, man. Just let them in. We know these guys are convicted rapists. We know these guys are carrying disease. We know these guys have vocally sworn that they want to see the end of the United States and of Christianity, but Jesus would welcome them in. Stop it. Don't waste my time with that. Don't waste my time with that. And a lot of people do try to waste my time with that. It's getting insulting. Romania ain't having it, basically. Get back to the bullet point. Romania ain't having it. Romania is one of those old communist bloc countries. And they have already demonstrated when they were done with Nicolae Ceausescu. You should look that up, by the way, if you haven't seen it. When the Romanians got fed up and said that some power outside of the Romanian people is no longer looking out for our interests, they took Nicolae Ceausescu and his fat ass wife, drug him out of the royal palace on Christmas frippin' Day, put them on the sidewalk in front of the palace, and machine gunned them to death on television on Christmas. So maybe, just maybe, hear me out, Klaus Schwab and company, and all you guys in Brussels and the EU, just hear me out for a second, Sparky. Maybe, just maybe, open up your brains really big. Not a good idea to jack with the interests of the Romanian people. Just a thought. Process that, beat it around your brain a little bit, get back to me. All right, that's it. So yeah, Romania is a powder keg, and it is looking for a spark, and they damn near gave it one. Now we're going to see what happens. They're going to throw those elections again. They're going to do everything they can to keep this guy from even being eligible to vote. It will not work. They are going to continue, and they're basically going to lay it out. It's like, look, dude, you should probably just let us vote for this guy and put him in power, because one way or the other, he's going into power. One way or the other, this guy's going into power. And the Romanian people would back that up with God as my witness. One way or the other, this guy's going into power. Do you understand? Earthly powers, man. Earthly powers like the EU. Earthly powers like Klaus Schwab and that bunch. Earthly power is just dealing with it. They don't realize that when the people of a nation are grounded in Scripture and rooted and pulling the will of God, whether you happen to believe in Sky Daddy or not, these people are grounded in Scripture and in faith and in the Spirit, and they are going to move mountains. Not just by having that grain of faith the size of a mustard seed are they going to move mountains. They are going to move mountains with force. Because enough is enough. And particularly the old communist bloc countries, because they have seen the final product of the adversary. What are you saying? Communism is Luciferian? No, I'm not saying it. I don't need to say it because it's self-fripping evident. These people have seen the final form of that Luciferian belief system politically. They know that equality is built on mass graves, as we went over last week, and they're not about to have it. But they're all about some mass graves if you get in their way. We will see it first in the former communist bloc countries, as we're already seeing in Romania and in Hungary and in Poland. We're going to see it first there, but it will gradually work its way across Europe. They will not go gently into that good night. Mark my words. Will there be some victories for the enemy? Probably. Are there countries where it's going to be really, really hard to pull it back from the brink? Yes. Ireland is in dire straits. Pray for them. The UK in the cities is in some dire straits. Pray for them. There are going to be places where this new incursion. You know, I love it when people bring up the Crusades. Oh, the Crusades. Oh, the Crusades. First of all, Sparky, I didn't realize we were having this conversation in the 1300s, but since you brought it up, this pushback that you're going to see, it's like the Crusades all over again. All this xenophobia, this hatred of Muslims, this backlash. It's exactly like the Crusades. Because what preceded the Crusades? 800 years of Muslim incursion, 800 years of Muslim atrocity, 800 years of that godless, Luciferian, pedophile prophet faith spreading its bile and its venom all over the European continent before we said enough is enough. And then lo and behold, we went and we took back the Holy Land. We took back all of Europe before. Don't think we can't take back all of Europe again. Because before the Crusades started, the Muslim incursion actually had large swaths of territory. You could take a look at what is now Portugal. You could take a look at what is now Spain and say, yeah, dude, they're too far gone. They'll never make it back. But they did. They did. And we're going to go over next week. We're going to go over a story that puts a story of 300. A story of 300 against an army of thousands that puts Thermopylae to shame. Greeks got nothing on what those guys came down what largely Spaniards did, coming charging down out of the hills and laid waste to Muslim armies. You have no idea, man. We are a proud people, and we will not go gently into that good night. And here is the thing. Gott mit uns, Europa. Gott mit uns. Europa erwacht. God is with us. God is with us if we only believe it. And now we are starting to believe it. Why are they so afraid of this revival here in the United States? Because it's not just the United States. Why are the Luciferian elements the ones who are so afraid of this cultural revival that is happening? Why are they so afraid of it? Because they know what the final ramification is. They no longer hold control. They're desperately trying to hold control of a little country that borders up against Russia that you might have heard of. In fact, it was in the news this week. Real quick. Yeah, you know what? I wanted to get into the Pope. Suffices to say, the Pope is still in critical condition. We can do a deep dive on that another time, man, but Spirit's taking me in a different direction right now. The Pope is on his last leg. The Pope is definitely on his last leg. And it's going to be interesting because this is a Pope who allegedly represents the interests of a free people and a Catholic people and a Christian people. This is a guy who supposedly represents the interests of God's church on this earth. This is a guy who said about free speech, you cannot provoke, you cannot insult the faith of others, you cannot make fun of the faith of others. Really, because I'm thinking Elijah might have crossed the threshold there, Pontiff. Again, Spirit's taking me in another direction. This deserves its own thing, and I can't do it proper justice right now, but we will, right? Assuming he's still alive next week. But there's going to be a transition, and according to the apocalyptic timetable, and according to the Revelation timetable, and according to the end time timetable, you might want to look at that, because the guy that comes next is going to say a lot of things. The guy that comes next is going to say a lot of things, whether or not this guy is old school Catholic or whether this guy is Luciferian Catholic, like this Francis fellow who's about to kick off. What do you say, Brian? And by the way, I'm glad you're here. Keep an eye on a group of Central and Eastern European countries known as the Visegrad Group. Brian, I'm glad you brought that up. And guys, if you don't know Brian, you should follow him. You should follow him. Keep an eye on his stuff. His posts are always topical and solid, Brian. And I'm glad you made it out for the sermon, man. You may have been here before, but I don't recall seeing you pop up in the comments before. But I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you made it. And I hope we're not disappointing you today for your first time out. In any case, Pontiff could be gone next week. Pope Francis kicks off. That's going to see a lot of things. The guy that comes out of the next consult, when the white smoke and the black smoke goes up, when they finally bring that new pope, going to be interesting to see how that pans out, particularly with regard to the end times timetable, right? Because Francis, if you wanted to make a case for a Luciferian pope, you could do a lot worse than what Francis has done, right? But again, didn't mean to get into that. All the other things can't properly do it justice. And in fact, I think Tulsi's probably going to have to wait for next week too. But I'm going to say this: we're going to jump off into this for sure. Godless popes at the helm in Vatican City. Godless degenerates in our intel community, and then I'll at least give this a brush for the one bullet point about Tulsi Gabbard, because we did cover her a bit in the opener. So it's only right that we need to at least touch on it going by. First of all, the Vatican thing, whatever Pope comes next, watch him close. Not just the early ones, because he's going to say all the right things going forward. At first, he's going to say all the right things. But we're not looking. What did the opener deal with? Rhetoric versus action. I don't care what he says. I care what he does. And that's going to take a little bit longer to ascertain. Ascertain, that's my college word. I got like 3 of those. That's going to take a little bit longer to ascertain. But it's going to say a lot. If the church pushes a pope and the new pontiff gets back to old school and grounds it down into scripture again, it's going to be a beautiful sign for the end times. If he goes the other direction, he goes Francis one further with this woke pope nonsense, then we already know where that's headed vis-a-vis end times timetable, don't we? The Vatican, the Christian church, the Catholic Church and the Christian Church looking to the Vatican for some kind of guidance. And you've got a degenerate in there pissing all over the scriptures. The intelligence community, people who are alleged adults, people who are in charge of that. What was the concern about Tulsi Gabbard being made director of national intelligence? She was a Russian asset. She had professed a liking for Vladimir Putin. She met with Bashar al-Assad. Wow. We used to do that. We used to meet with our adversaries. It was called diplomacy at the time. But leaving all that aside for a minute, she gets in, and what are the things? Again, the rhetoric of somebody needs to do something out there. Somebody needs to clean house. She goes in and starts cleaning house. The first thing she finds is a chat room full of freaking degenerates. These are people, again, everybody's sweating that Elon Musk may have access to your classified information. Oh, my goodness. You mean something that telemarketers don't already have access to? But anyway, leaving that aside just for the moment, people are all aflutter that Elon Musk may have this is the NSA. Their whole job is to have access to this information. And you take a look at some of the stuff these guys are talking about in these chat rooms. Look at the parts of that chat that were declassified, dude. These guys are degenerates of the highest freaking order, man. And this is coming from me. Guys, you know, back in the day, my depravity exploits with regard to abhorrent sexual behavior were the stuff of legend, all right? So on an individual level, I can't really judge them. I cannot judge them as sinners, but damn if I'm going to sit here and not confront their sin when these people are outright talking about pedophilia, when these people are outright talking about minor attracted persons, let alone all the where's the NSA headquarters? Fort Meade, Maryland. All the stuff with the DOJ and the scandals around Fort Meade, all these people that were tangentially involved with the intelligence community, which is a nice way of saying they were on the payroll, but we can't verify anything because they're working for the NSA, and all the scandals about pedophile behavior that was going on in and around Fort Meade. And then this chat room pops up with literally over 100. What do we got here? Here we got more than 100 intelligence officers from 15 different agencies on a chat platform discussing polyamory, gender transition surgery for minors, minor attracted persons, sympathy for pedophiles, all being openly discussed on a non-classified platform. Gabbard got hold of this and cut every single one of them loose. Cut every single one of them loose and revoked their security clearance. This is what happens when people act instead of going on rhetoric. Somebody needs to do something. Somebody did. So I felt like I needed to give Tulsi those props before we move on to the big closer. And you know what we're closing with, because what else has been all over it? What happened in the Oval Office just a couple of days ago? Did you guys see this? Ryan, I know you and I were basically watching the damn thing live. This ingrate, this absolute ingrate. Who had a cow, Joey? Who had a cow over it? I mean, besides the legacy media, is there somebody that I missed? J Dub, what do you got? Hang on. J Dub, Bart, remind me to send you a video of Catholic bishop who responded to the Pope's statements about illegal immigration. It's a great takedown with scripture, about 25 minutes long. Okay, brother, I'm going to remind you right now, since apparently you're already on YouTube, I want you to go ahead and find that video and cut and paste, get me the header and send it to my Facebook inbox. Send it to, or no, don't send it to my, yeah, you know what? Send it to my Facebook inbox. Send it to me. I will figure out a way. I'll figure out a way to access it. Or send it to me at, my PayPal address is also my email address, reverendbart@hotmail.com. And I'll go ahead and scroll that ticker on the bottom and you can have that. So please send that to me. ReverendBart@hotmail.com. Just look down here. It's right there. It's scrolling by. And by the way, anybody that wants to kick me down something in the digital collection plate, those are my addresses for PayPal and Venmo and all that other stuff. Well, let's get into it. What happened? Well, Zelensky did meet with the Democrats first. That was the beauty of it. That was the absolute beauty of it. These idiots. Oh my goodness. The Dems put the pressure on him to reject the deal, which is the height of absurdity in the first freaking place, because there's no security assurances tacked to it. The Democrats basically tried to get him to flex, to try to demand NATO membership. It's never going to happen. Never, Sparky. You are never going to be a member of NATO. Never. You little coke-addled dwarf. It is never going to happen. But yeah, he met with the Dems first. The Dems, basically, what it comes down to is they are willing, like everyone else seems to be willing, to keep this war going for the sake of a political victory, for the sake of money for the military-industrial complex, for the sake of some moral victory against Donald Trump. They know what the realities are on the ground in Ukraine. They know because they've got money riding on it. Do you understand? Just like USAID, big money laundering operation, Ukraine from day one has been a money laundering operation. I called this in 2014, right after Maidan. Anybody over here in the comments, man, say it. Let them know. You guys remember, I called it in 2014. And what happened immediately after Maidan? Maybe not immediately, but shortly after Poroshenko, I think Poroshenko had been put into place. Biden's kid, Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden gets an advisory position on the board of directors at Burisma, Ukrainian oil and gas concern. This entire operation, from the CIA coup that set this thing in motion, was there for two things. One, to undermine Putin and his legitimate interest in the region, destabilize him. But two, to make a hell of a lot of money for well-placed Democrats, particularly Joseph Biden. I called it right after it happened, and I've been calling it ever since then. Back then, all the people who are praising Zelensky's name right now, and he's this hero, this cross-dressing freak comic. By the way, that video, we can post that again if anybody has it, would like to post that, right? Everyone's hero walking around in his little military cosplay. This guy, this was before he even came along. He was installed. Ukraine historically has been the most corrupt country on the European continent. Period. End of statement. Done. There are no exceptions. The most corrupt. And yet, those deep staters, from Obama to Biden, chose to crawl in bed with these people, knowing full well, hey, bro, And Joe, I'm glad that you cut because I couldn't figure it out if it was you or another friend of mine, J Dub. But dude, I'm glad you're here, and thank you for because I never know. It's like I'm glad that you're here, bro. I'm glad that you're here. I really appreciate it, man. And I've got some folks here that from Brian Hoostall, who was kind enough to come out, man. I'm seeing some folks here that I haven't seen before, which means that the program is growing. That I've got some people that I can work with. That we're building a community of like minds and kindred spirits, which is what I wanted this thing from the get go. Getting back to it, Zelensky stepped into the Oval Office. Here's the thing: when I say Zelensky is a Rorschach test, what do you know about the Rorschach test? The ink blot, right? You take a look at the ink blot. You take a look at the ink blot, and you say, "What do you see? What do you see in that ink blot? What do you see in that ink blot?" Now, of course, we're all looking at the same ink blot, but what you see in that is not a reflection on the ink blot itself. What you see in that is a reflection on you. Okay? It's a reflection on who you are, which is why I am breaking ranks with every single one of these people. Because at the very least, you are too ignorant to utter so much as a grunt in my presence. And if that is not the case, and you are up to snuff on everything that's going on, that makes you the worst sort of abject liar. Do you realize that for the sake of Hunter Biden's bank account and us being able to poke Putin in the eye and then turn around and call the invasion unprovoked, by the way, we upended a democratically elected government in another country halfway across the world, not anything that we haven't done before, particularly where our CIA is involved. We overturned a democratically elected government. We installed a group, and here's the historical irony. Our first black president who took his oath of office on a Lincoln Bible. I'll wait for that to process so you can stop laughing. Our first black president installs a post-coup government in the Ukraine that is comprised of avid neo-Nazis. What? Between 2014 and the invasion in 2022, every single one of these people in the mainstream press now that are denying it, there is article after article about Ukraine's Nazi problem. The fact that Stepan Bandera, I'll wait for y'all to Google that, Stepan Bandera is still a national hero over there. Ardent Nazi. The fact that the Azov battalion, again, with the invasion being unprovoked, all of the massacres that took place in the Donbass region, in Luhansk, Donetsk, massacres that started to happen in Crimea, and Putin put a stop to it with the polite people. I'll wait for you guys to Google that. Unprovoked. The only thing I am upset with about Vladimir Putin with regard to the way that he has handled this Ukraine situation is the fact that he didn't proceed into Donbass immediately after annexing Crimea. That's the only thing that I'm upset with Vladimir Putin about. He should have done it then. Here's what Zelensky could have had. He could have had peace. The Democrats advised him against the mineral deal, not because they were looking out for the interests of the Ukrainian people, not because they were looking out for the interests of Zelensky, not because they were looking to extend the war. Because if Trump brings an end to this war by diplomatic measures, not only is their money laundering machine done, they had USAID and they had Ukraine. Half of it's gone now, thanks to Elon Musk, and the other half in Ukraine is getting ready to go bye-bye. They couldn't have that. They told him to reject it. Now, here's the thing. We need security assurances. Listen up, Sparky. What is the better security assurance than our commercial involvement in rebuilding Ukraine? If we go over there and you give these companies, and again, I am not the guy singing the praises of Halliburton, KBR being given no bid contracts or any of the things, or American companies being given no bid contracts to go over there and rebuild Ukraine. Don't think for one second that I wouldn't go over there and run a crane in Ukraine if we were given contracts to rebuild. I'm definitely going to go over there and make some of that international money. Plus the fact that I'm going to take a little trip because I've always wanted to see Chernobyl up close. Just go by Pripyat and see the big, the carousel and the Ferris wheel. Anyway, I digress. They told him not to do it because they want to continue this war. Because if Trump manages to solve this through diplomatic means, it is another feather in his hairpiece. It is another feather in that windswept spray tan. And it is an end to their money laundering operation, and it is an end to all these things that they've spent so much time organizing and trying to entrench, all the things that destabilize Putin, all the things that are innately harmful to the Russian people. We act, not we, the grazers, act as if, say, I don't know, another adversarial nation, let's say China, said, hey man, we've been looking at America and their nasty little habit of manipulating elections in foreign countries and going into countries full of brown people and bombing the piss out of them, unprovoked, preemptive wars of aggression for empire. We've been looking at the Americans, and they've got a bad habit of doing that. Why, if you looked at that, you'd almost think that the Americans were trying to get an empire or something, because that's exactly what they say about Putin. You would think that if China said, hey, man, we can't be too careful. We need to have alliances in that region. I'm going to talk to, Trudeau. I mean, Trudeau's gone now, but when he was there, because he expressed an admiration for the Chinese. We should talk to those guys in Canada and in Mexico. We should talk about putting Chinese weapons in Canada and Mexico and building diplomatic relations with Canada and Mexico, because these guys clearly want an empire and we need to have some stuff in the region. How do you think we'd react to that? Right. And yet we're expecting Vladimir Putin just to roll over and play dead after he watched literally tens of thousands of ethnic Russians massacred, slaughtered in Donbass. You people have no idea what you're advocating. But that Rorschach test, again, is not a reflection on what we're actually looking at. We know what we're actually looking at. What we're actually looking at is a CIA-backed coup gone wrong that put a lot of money in a corrupt vice president and eventually president's son's pocket. We know what we're looking at. We're looking at tens of thousands of dead ethnic Russians all over the eastern half of Ukraine and into Crimea before Putin annexed it. And we're looking at them trying to become the most corrupt nation on the European continent, trying to become a member of NATO. So if anything bad ever happens to them, they provoke a fight like they provoked this one, and we are compelled to come to their aid at the expense of possibly World War III with the world's only other nuclear superpower. That is what the inkblot is. When people have the determination of what they see in that inkblot, if what you come away from that with is that we bullied him somehow, what you are telling me is that you are perfectly okay. As someone who lived through the ass end of the Cold War, as someone whose high school days were the Reagan era, where that Russian menace, evil empire stuff was legit and something we lived every day, the specter of nuclear Armageddon hanging over our head like a sword of Damocles, we lived through that. And you're going to tell me to my face that you're perfectly comfortable dancing right up to the edge of nuclear freaking Armageddon for corrupt American politicians to launder their money. This is not a moral or ethical principle. You are saying to me, I am perfectly okay with an entire generation of Ukraine's best and brightest. The average age of the frontline soldier in Ukraine right now is 43. Do you understand that? We went over this a little last week. You remember the old 80s hit 19? Average age of the combat soldier in World War II was 26. In Vietnam, it was 19. Yeah, because we had a whole nation of young, poor kids who were willing to go fight that war, and the ones that weren't willing got drafted, and they went and they fought that war. Everyone in Ukraine who is fighting age is dead. Dead. You have cleaned out an entire generation of young Ukrainian men to cover up your involvement in biological weapon laboratories. Again, let them say what they want, conspiracy theory, all this. They can drop it however they want. I don't care. I don't care anymore. These are facts. They are documented. Disengagement doesn't hurt. Ridicule them, confront them, because what they are telling me to my face, if that is what they see in this Rorschach test, that this is acceptable, that they're perfectly okay for purely political reasons for an entire generation of young men to be slaughtered for nothing, for a war they never had a chance to win. That, coupled with dancing right up to the edge of a nuclear conflagration and everything that entails, you're perfectly okay with that, just so your team wins. Completely uneducated, completely bereft of any historical perspective, and completely bereft of anything approximating a moral compass. For you to look at that, they are snatching men off the streets right now. The videos are out there, and guys, if you have them, share them amongst yourselves and share them with anybody who's even remotely paying attention. Where kids are being snatched right off the street and sent to the front lines of that meat grinder because they've got no one left. We have sent over $200 billion to that nation, most of which is unaccountable for. Oh, shocking, in the most corrupt nation on the European continent. And you're telling me you're okay with that too, as long as your team wins, because Orange Man bad. You are a despicable human being, bereft of anything resembling morals or principles, and I have nothing further to say to you. So enough disengaging, enough walking away from discussions. There's a thing about, yes, Mike, that's exactly the kind of video that I'm talking about. It's exactly the kind of video that I'm talking about. Almost feel sorry for the little puppet. Yeah, they'll take him out. And here's what else it says before I finish up on this Rorschach test. Here's what else it says. You guys are marching for him now and calling him a freaking hero. And in his own country, his own people want him gone. I want you guys to take a look at the last post that I made about Zelensky on my Facebook page. Just ponder this. His own people want him gone. The thing that I constantly hear from these people about Donald Trump is he's going to suspend elections and make himself a dictator. Their hero Zelensky has done exactly that. You know that little costume that he puts on where he tries to be big, tough military guy? Yeah. What is the other thing we hear about Trump all the time? You know, he dodged the draft. Ukraine has compulsory military service. Zelensky skipped his. First of all, how did he manage to pull that off? Well, because it's a corrupt country. He knew who to pay off. Do some digging. You'll find out. What you were telling me is that you were okay with that. And I simply have nothing further to say to you anymore. I cannot countenance, that's my other college word. I got like 3 of those. I cannot countenance in good conscience, particularly from people who at the onset of this thing, my own birth mother included. Ooh, didn't see that coming. Gee, Bart. Yeah. my own birth mother included, telling me how saddened she was at my support for a murderous dictator. People like her and all of the other grazers with the U-crop flags in their profile right now, what they are saying to me is, it's okay. As long as their team wins, they don't care. They don't care. Well, the least I can do is meet them halfway. I no longer care. I know what is true and I know what is right, and I have to push straight through to the logical end of this equation, and I will continue to do so. I will continue to spit the truth, guys. You already know where I'm going. I will continue to spit the truth, even if it, come on, guys, you already know what the quote is by now. I will continue to speak the truth if it short dicks every cannibal on the Congo and hair lips every hillbilly on Buck Creek. I'm going to continue spitting these hate facts at these people. But at the end of the day, as we went over in the opener, and here's the point that brings it all home, it's not about rhetoric. What we say doesn't mean anything anymore. Just like what they say doesn't mean anything and never did. It's based on nothing. It's vapor in the ether. They stand for nothing. We need to stand for something. They can shriek and cry their little crocodile tears about all the things that they are against. I give a damn what they are against. It's about what you are for. It's about what you are for. You can tell me all day what you're against, but the only thing I have to judge from their end about what they're for is what they don't speak about, what they don't come out and say, this is where I draw the line. I would rather be known for what I'm for. What are you for, Bart? Let me tell you what I'm for. I am for a strong and independent United States of America. I am for taking the fight to the enemy. I am for calling evil evil to its face wherever you find it, standing up, chin down, knuckles up, and being ready to fight. I am for the scriptures. I am for the boss man, the carpenter, and the spirit. That is what I am for. I am for seeing the sovereignty of the individual restored. I am for seeing the sovereignty of America restored. I am for seeing a bloated bureaucracy dismantled down to the last bolt and the last man and cast onto the scrap pile of history. I am for restoring original founders' intent. I am for the promise of what this nation was and is and can be again in the right hands. And I am for letting your balls drop, finding your spine, and being ready to fight for any and all of the above. That is what I am for. What are you about, Sparky? Don't tell me. Show me. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Ooh. I love y'all, man. I love y'all. I love y'all. And yeah, I'm fired up, man. But don't mistake this fervor for anything but what it is. It's fervor. I am passionate about this because I'm seeing us at the brink. You understand? I'm seeing us past the tipping point. I'm seeing us coming out of the shadows, out of the darkness. I am seeing us having been down so long that the bottom looked like freaking up. And I'm seeing us in a position for the first time, maybe in my adult life. No, it's not true. It's not true. I lived through the Reagan era. But I'm seeing us where it means something again to establish yourself in the realm of national sovereignty, where it means something again to say, I am an American citizen, where it means something again to say, I stand with Christ, to say where it means something again to look at the face of degeneracy and not feel obligated to go, oh, well, live and let live. I am looking at a revival that is going on not just here in the United States, but globally, man. All those old communist bloc countries that I was talking about, Hungary, Poland, Romania, all those places. I am looking at a revival going on. I'm looking at a revival going on in communist China right now. I am looking at people coming into their own and getting past what ultimately was holding them back from expressing who they are and what they're for. What holds them back from that? Fear. Fear, fear, always fear. Fear of how I'm going to be perceived. Fear of how the family is going to take it. Fear of the friends that I may lose. Fear of the repercussions. Fear of what if they take my job away. Fear of that. 365 times in the scriptures, do not be afraid. Take a look at iterations of that. Be not afraid, show no fear, have no fear in your heart. You start to look at another, it grows quickly into thousands. It's almost as if there is no more fundamental command in the scriptures beyond walk in truth and don't be scared. If you take nothing, if you spend 5 minutes a night with your face in some scripture and you take nothing after a year of that, but walk in truth and don't be scared, I think the boss man will be okay with that. But the only way we're going to know is for you to get your face in some damn scripture. And if you ain't on that tip, you need to be. What could it possibly hurt? If your life's going well, it's just going to be a nice little bonus. If your life's going miserably, what do you have to lose? What are you afraid of since we're already there? Put your face in some scripture. Do it at random. Pick a verse at random. You'd be surprised how often that winds up hitting. Or do what I do. Going book by book, couple of chapters a night. Just got wrapped up with Ezekiel, by the way. Powerful. Figured I would jump off into Isaiah next, but right before Isaiah, Song of Solomon. Wow. The best work of any of the English poets. Can't touch Song of Solomon. And after Song of Solomon, it dovetails nicely into Isaiah. So that's where we're headed. But get your face in some scripture, man. Please. Because what I've found, in spite of my considerable political acumen, is that none of any of this was making sense. But once you come back to the faith, and once you start looking at it through a scriptural lens, you'll be surprised how quick you find yourself going, damn, okay, all right, boss man, I see what you did there. Brilliant. Maybe you don't believe, and that's cool too. Even for you non-believers, it's some damn compelling reading. When you're in jail, when you're in prison, the one book you can guarantee you're going to be able to find, even in county, is a Bible. So if you are somewhat familiar with the coursework, put your face in it and see what it has to teach you. No matter where you find yourself, there will be a Bible. It's almost as if Boss Man wants that word read. It's almost as if Boss Man loves us all and wants us all to come home. But don't get it twisted, because Boss Man makes no peace with enemies. The one that kept, man, the thing that kept coming back to me in Ezekiel, if you never read through it, man, the thing that kept coming back to me in Ezekiel is the end of every damn, and you will know that I am the Lord. This is how I'm going to stomp your ass. This is how I'm going to lay your lands desolate. This is how I'm going to make sure your women have barren wombs. This is how I'm going to make sure that locusts destroy your crops, and you will know that I am the Lord. This is how I'm going to have every stone fall from every building and leave you with nothing, and you will know that I am the Lord. It's like, wow. Heavy, 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 heavy read. Get your face in some scripture, man. Maybe life will make a little more sense to you. That's all I can recommend. And if you're looking for If you're looking for where to start, hit me up. If you're looking for pastors that you follow online, right? I'll give you a couple right now. Mark Driscoll out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Love that dude. Love that dude. Upbeat, family friendly. You want heavy, uncompromising? Philip Anthony Mitchell out of Atlanta, Georgia. Heavy, heavy, heavy. I'm boiling over with it, man. Because that peace that passes all understanding, for all my ranting and raving and fury and fire and punch, the peace is what motivates that. As counterintuitive as that may seem, the beauty that I see in Boss Man's creation is what motivates the intensity and fury of my desire to resist those who would do that beauty harm or seeking into it. Maybe it'll hit you different. I can't speak. I'm just speaking my testimony, man. All I can give you is what I can give you, and that's my walk with the carpenter. Your mileage may vary, brother. Your mileage may vary, but put on some shoes and get to walking. Get on that path, man. Because in case you hadn't noticed, tick tock, you ain't got a lot of time. I'm going to close with a prayer. Lord God, for the sake of everybody that's gathered here tonight, all the people that are over in the comments, for the people who are here for the first time, or the people that I'm noticing here for the first time, people like Joe, people like Brian that are coming out, I thank you for the opportunity to speak with them directly. I thank you for the gift of oration that you've given me. As I always pray to you, help me to find the ability to touch hearts, to open minds, to pull scales from eyes, and bring people home, Lord. That is my calling, and that is my anointing, and that is what I seek to do. If there is anyone here who I can get one step closer to truth by anything that comes out of my mouth, all the glory is yours, Lord. All the glory is yours. I am nothing but a vessel. Help me to be a good one. Help me to be the best vessel that I can possibly be for your will and your word in this world. Help me to find those kindred spirits. Help those kindred spirits to find me. Help us to build something here, Lord. Help us to interact so that we can better understand each other and therefore better understand you. Better walk in the light of your truth through an understanding that we come to by building a community here of like minds and kindred spirits and searching souls, Lord, above everything else, searching souls. Because we're all here and we're broken and we're searching. And some of us have the humility to lay it down and say, man, this ain't on me no more. I can't. That took a lot. Boy, it took a lot. There's a crazy Russian out there listening, and a couple of brothers in Christ that were there that day. I didn't give it up easily. Harder for some of us than others, Lord, but help us to lay it down. Help us to find that humility, to lay that burden down and come to you and say, give me the cross. Give me the purpose. Let me serve. Lord, show me how to work for the kingdom. Here I am, Lord, send me. We're here for it, Lord. We're here for it. For those who are out here who are hurting, I will never ask you to take away their burden. I will ask you to help them find the strength to carry it. Because it is in that we find our deepest strengths and become better vessels for your will and your word, Lord. Omnia ad regnum, all things for the kingdom. Glory is ever yours. I pray in the name of the risen Christ, whose blood bought redemption for what could never have been redeemed. It is in his name that I pray, and he who I ever serve. Amen. I love y'all. Thank you. Thank you for being here, all y'all. All y'all, man. Josh, you're gonna have to catch the replay, brother. You have to catch the replay. It'll be up on YouTube here. I'm having some trouble with Rumble and BitChute, which is why I stopped mentioning them as like sources for the replay. Guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. If you guys want to chuck me something, you guys already know, man. I'm on all you see the ticker down at the bottom. I'm on Venmo, I'm on Cash App, I'm on PayPal, I'm on all that good stuff, Facebook Pay, yada yada yada. If anything that I say helped you or changed your view or made you reflect on something, you want to chuck me down something, that would be beautiful, man. But I understand too that not everybody can. We are still recovering. We are still bouncing back from 4 ugly years of Democrat economy. So maybe you ain't got it, and that's cool too. But here's what you can do, man. Share it with your friends. Share the broadcast with your friends. Tell them, hey, man, like minds, kindred spirits, fat, toothless, crippled crane operator with some opinions gets on a rants and raves for a couple hours, and maybe you'll find something there worth looking at. But here's what you can do, not just for me, but for yourself. Stone already know, man. Hashtag live the 3, brother. Hashtag live the 3. Live the 3. What are you talking about? Live the 3. The 3 prime directives on Planet Bart. That's how we roll. The 3 prime directives. Rules for life, man. Rule number 1, signal and noise. They'll try to bury you with the noise. The signal to noise ratio is all messed up. They'll try to bury you with that noise. That noise is all the lies. It's all the deception. It's all the confusion. It's the fog of war. It's what they use to keep you from finding the truth. You have got to be the signal that breaks through that noise. You got to be light in a world full of darkness. They will try to bury you with the darkness, make you think there's nothing left but darkness. They will try to demoralize you, emasculate you, dehumanize you with that darkness. You have got to be the light, and you got to be the hand that carries that light, to punch that through to the other side of that darkness for the people that need to see it on the other eyes, and to have the endurance to carry it through a long-acting fog so other people can see that light. Which brings me to the third and final rule, the most important rule, the iron rule. Strength in a world full of weakness. You have got to be strength in a world full of weakness. I'm not just talking about this kind of strength. This kind of strength is important, don't get me wrong. And this kind, and all that, that's important. But this also has to be here, and yes, even here, gentlemen. Let your nuts drop. You got to find that strength, because without strength, none of the rest of it matters. Without strength, you won't be able to punch that signal through the noise, get through all the confusion, and get that message across. Without strength, you will not have the endurance to carry that light long enough for people on the other side of the darkness to see, or to punch that light through straight to the other side of that darkness. Without strength, it all fails. So strength above all. And when you pray, guys, strength, clarity, and discernment. Because no matter how much strength you're carrying, without clarity and discernment, the deceiver is always out there. He is the father of lies. Do you understand? He is out there waiting to trip you up, waiting to convince you of things that are not true, that you know aren't true. So you got to have the discernment to be able to tell the signal from the noise, the light from the darkness, and the strength from the weakness. Strength, clarity, and discernment always when you pray. Hit your knees, get your face in some scripture, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. God bless every single one of y'all. I love you, man. Boss man's got the plan. Carpenter's got your back. May the Spirit carry you through to the other side. God bless y'all. See you next Sunday, man. Thank you, all of you, so much. Take care. Peace.